So, Brian, I'm going to be a prognosticator. I'm going to turn into Nostradamus here for once because I don't know what the numbers were, but I'm betting that it was worse than last week, but better than the week before. In other words, about the same thing as they've been doing.
Well, Jim, the ratings for AEW Dynamite on TBS June 7th, a Wednesday, as always, 903,000 viewers on average.
So that was a little down from last week and a little up from the week before, about what they've been doing.
Well, the show opened quarter one, 8 to 8:15 p.m. Orange Cassidy versus Swerve Strickland with picture-in-picture, 962,000 viewers.
The big bangers must love old pockets by now, but now the debate here is going to be, as usual, where do they fall off the cliff? For an average of 903 to start out at 962, looks to me like they're going to be strong for the first part of the program before they hit the fucking bottomless pit. Go ahead.
Segment 2, 8:15 to 8:30 p.m. The final 4 minutes of Cassidy versus Strickland. The post-match with the Mogul Embassy, Darby Allin and Sting.
The Mogul Embassy is what we're calling it now?
Well, that's what WrestleNomics called it. This data was pulled by WrestleNomics here.
Did Lovey do this one, or is Thurston Howell off for vacation this week, or?
There was a Jay White video as well as a Bryan Danielson Kazuchika Okada video. 924,000 viewers.
So Pockets only drove 38,000 off this week.
Segment 3, 8:30 to 8:45 p.m. Chaos versus Blackpool Combat Club with picture-in-picture Chaos. The best friends and their other friend.
Is that what they call them now?
Well, the Japanese faction with Rocky Romero is Chaos, so now...
Oh, I thought he became a best friend when he was with the other two. Isn't it 2 out of 3 rules? It's 2 best friends and 1 chaotic guy. So
if you're in a group called Chaos, do you feel like a moron if you're wrestling the Blackpool Combat Club? We're Chaos. Look at these fucking guys.
Well, what did Best Chaos and the other guys do here?
Well, also the Hung Bucks promo backstage, 895,000 viewers.
Okay, so that they're dueling, let's see, 24 and 5, 20. They only drove off 29,000, so they're not as good as Pockets.
Segment 4, 8:45 to 9 p.m., the Kenny Omega Will Ospreay video, MJF and Adam Cole's live confrontation, in ring, 955,000 viewers.
Wow. So
we have not seen a bump like that in a while.
Yeah, that's unusual, and that's the 8:45 to 9 p.m. So they apparently wanted to see MJF and Adam Cole talk because that was, 12 out of this 15 minutes? That is, they're up 60,000 from the previous quarter.
Have you been watching the first...
And they overlapped into 5 at the top of the hour, so we'll see what that is. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Right. And if you've been watching the first 45 to 50 minutes, MJF's a breath of fresh air at this point on this program.
Yeah. There must be some kind of concerted effort for people to text their friends or whatever. He's on!
Well,
back on!
Well, segment 5, the big 9 o'clock hour, 9 to 9:15 p.m., the final 2 minutes of the MJF Cole Live promo, as well as the Hardys, Isaiah Cassidy, and Ethan Page's backstage comedy promo, and La Facción Ingobernale.
The Goobers! The Goobers!
Versus
Let's
Jungle
just
Hook.
shorten it. The Goobers. What did the Goobers do?
Well, the faction of Goobers versus Jungle Hook with picture-in-picture, 929,000 viewers.
So
the Goobers.
one can assume that nobody turned off the last 3 or 4 minutes or whatever it was of Adam Cole and MJF, so we can give the other guys credit for running off 26,000 people.
You know what? Even though I wasn't crazy about the entirety of the Adam Cole MJF promo,
You at least wanted to see where it was going.
You wanted to see where it's going, and you know what? At least it didn't end with just a brawl like everything else does. Like, whatever you think of it, there's still room for more.
They didn't do the whole goddamn thing.
Exactly. Segment 6. 9:15 to 9:30 p.m. The finish of the Goober faction versus Jungle Hook. Konosuke Takeshita versus
our friend Take
versus Damon Ace. Not Demon. Damon Ace. The Don Callis and Takeshita Live promo, Christian Cage's backstage promo, and the beginning of Chris Statlander versus Anna Jay. 863,000 viewers.
Ouch. So there we found it, because now they've dropped another 66,000. So that they've lost almost 100,000 in the past 30 minutes.
Well, segment 7, 9:30 to 9:45 p.m., Chris Statlander versus Anna Jay continued, and the Outcast backstage promo, 847,000 viewers.
And bye-bye to 316 more thousand of you.
And finally, 9:45 to 10 p.m., segment 8, Ricky Starks versus Jay White with picture-in-picture, and the post-match with the Guns and Juice Robinson, 845,000 viewers.
Gee, Manelli, they couldn't even pick up anything. They lost 2,000 more people for the main event. It's not a bad number to end up with, considering where they've been in the past. But they're still...
But look at the end.
They lost 120,000 from start to finish.
You know, look at the end of the show, though. Statlander versus Anna Jay. I would have to go back and check. I'm looking at the trend line here. Didn't drop as much as most of the women's segments at the end of the show usually do. And although Ricky Starks has had a good following and people have been into him, and him and MJF now months ago was great on TV, it's him against Jay White. Jay White has not been established enough to pull a number from main eventing this show. So the fact that it was only 845, that it didn't drop off further, I actually think is pretty good.
It's the little things, Brian. It's the small victories. Meanwhile, and again, somebody asked me on Twitter, well, why don't you go through the SmackDown ratings or the Raw ratings like this minutely? Well, number one, the Raw ratings is 12 quarters, and it's ridiculous. And you know what it's going to be. First hour is okay. Second hour is usually the biggest one. Third hour drops off because what the fuck? And with SmackDown, as we saw last week, and I think we forgot to mention it on the last program, last week's SmackDown number was enormous for modern times. And the final quarter with the Bloodline Roman Reigns 1,000-day ceremony was 2.9 million viewers. And, honestly, to be quite honest, the Bloodline thing has to be what's carrying the whole deal, because there's not that much interesting going on otherwise. But good Lord, the people are liking that. And that was the end. My point to be made, the end of the 2-hour program was the highest rated segment of the program because people wanted to see that. They weren't watching a show that they were saying, okay, good God, we know what's coming up and we don't give a shit. And that's the difference. They're pretty consistent. They do not lose. The WWE does not lose 20 to 25% of their audience from start to finish on a show usually, unless it's the 3-hour Raw. And then actually they don't lose that percentage. They lose more viewers because they start out with many more, but they don't lose that much. This show, you can't watch the whole goddamn thing because it's just endless, same, chaos, violence, not even violence, just wreckage. They're not really mad, you can tell that, but they're just hurting each other. But they're cooperating when they do it. Anyway.
And
those
by the way,
are the numbers there. What?
You brought up the SmackDown numbers. Last week, which was the 1,000-day celebration, for the record, the show started with 2.45 million viewers. It ended with 2.9 million viewers.
They picked up, what's 450,000 to $1.5 million. They picked up almost 20%, didn't they?
And the key demo is interesting too. Starts at 860,000 viewers, ends at 1.13 million. So the advertisers and the network love that.
And again, that's what I'm saying is that there's not anything interesting on the WWE program except the Bloodline. So when the Bloodline does something, the people fucking love it because they're starved. And over on the other channel, you can't get fucking hungry because they won't stop feeding you. So it's complete polar opposites. But the one seems to be working, the starvation thing. Hey, you lock somebody up in the fucking closet and you only pitch them a sandwich every couple of days, they're going to love the fucking sandwich, right? That's what the experience I've usually had with people that's been in my closet. What about you, Brian?
I have not had that experience.
People don't get hungry in your closet?
I don't lock people in my closet. How many people have you locked in your closet?
I'm not allowed at liberty right now to enumerate.
Have you been locked in the closet?
No, I got the key.
Before you had a key, no one just pushed you in and locked the door and ran away?
No, I had the closet built.
There are other closets, Jim. Hotchkiss didn't invent the closet.
No, this is a good closet. You can't get out of this closet. You can get out of a lot of closets, but no, I got a brand new built-in closet, and I got the only key. All right, so before we go any further to SmackDown this week, which won't take long, what in the wide, wide world of sports is going on at the Wrestling News, the Arcadian Vanguard, and all the fine programming that you do on the side over there?
We got a brand new pair of roller skates, and you got a brand new key. No, another fine week of programming on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. Get information.
Thank you, Melanie.
Get information about all the shows. Thank you very much. To get information about all the shows on Twitter at Superpodcast. You say shit, and it makes me smile, and I can't talk. Or on Facebook at facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. A few notes. Of course, if you want your wrestling news for free every day with no opinion, no conjecture, just the straight news, get it from the Wrestling News, directly from thewrestlingnews.com, or look for Arcadian Vanguard's The Wrestling News wherever you find your favorite podcast. Once again, free daily wrestling newscast from the Wrestling News. Also, videos up on the official Arcadian Vanguard YouTube channel. Speaking of which, I want to mention Shut Up and Wrestle with Brian Solomon, a very popular show on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. Many great episodes. He just put up one with Kurt Fuller, an interview with the man who played Brell in No Holds Barred. You should check that out. But one of the things that we're going to be doing is bringing some of the episodes in the past and future episodes of Shut Up and Wrestle to the Arcadian Vanguard YouTube channel. And one of the exciting things, Jim, going on is Brian Solomon, who of course worked for WWE Magazine years and years ago, has a great collection of audio that's never been heard before of people he interviewed for the magazine. We're going to start introducing some of these segments onto the show. I have a small sample I'd like to play for you, Jim.
Well, I'd like to hear it, Brian.
Here's Brian Solomon talking to Dusty Rhodes.
Well, something else that you've been known for through your career, obviously we believe in that if we didn't talk about it, is you're definitely one of the most famous bleeders in the history of wrestling. I mean, did you just wake up one morning and decide that you were just going to be the greatest bleeder in the history of the business? How did that happen?
By getting hit in the head more than anybody else in our business. That's the only way you become a bleeder. It's like fighters, Chuck Webner and them guys. I mean, you get hit in the head. I was in many vicious battles. No, that's a ridiculous and stupid question. Say I woke up one morning and said I'm going to become one of the bleeders. I think during that era of from the mid '80s on back to when I started in '70, you know what I mean, to '69.
Right.
That was an era of realness, and there was an era of old timers and different things that happened. It wasn't just. So I woke up and said, I'm going to be a bleeder.
Right.
I should have ducked. I should have ducked a lot more and dodged a lot more. Let me put it like that.
That's probably
Other
true.
than that, that's what happened in that case. But no, a lot of pain, blues, and agony laid on my noggin.
Well, there's a small sample of it. Brian Solomon talking to Dusty Rhodes.
After the last 15 years, Brian asks better questions now.
Again, it was for WWE Magazine. It was a long time ago. And, it is crazy to think about considering where we are today. I mean, here we are doing this show, and there are other shows, and so many things have happened. But even though there were already shoot interviews at that time, especially for a company publication, kayfabe was broken and things were talked about, but there was the old guard especially still had their guard up.
Yeah. And Dusty, good God, if he'd have been asked that question 10 years before that, he would have given the John Wayne backhand to whoever it was. And there were, some things you still, the guys didn't talk about at that, even when the horse had left the barn, as Mama Cornette used to say. You couldn't bring yourself to talk about it, especially if you're doing something official for the company. Maybe, if he was sitting down at a fan fest and, in a candid moment, as they say. But even then, it took a while before everybody got used to the fact that what the fuck is everybody? They're just talking about it. So what the fuck?
But you see, Dusty thought it was a ridiculous question. If Brian Solomon asked that same question to, say, Jon Moxley, it'd be like, what a brilliant question. Yes, I did. I woke up and said, I'm going to be the best bleeder ever. I woke up on a boxcar headed to Dayton. We'll hear more from Shut Up and Wrestle with Brian Solomon. Like I said, Kurt Fuller on a recent episode. Get it at suawpod.com or look for Shut Up and Wrestle with Brian Solomon wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And of course, the 605 Super Podcast, The Mothership! Go through the archive today at 605pod.com, available wherever you find your favorite podcasts. The 605 Super Podcast, The Mothership.